So it's up to round number 13. And before we go on to the game, let's have a look at the standings before this round. So after round 12, Yu Yangyi and Daniil Dubov are leading with 9 out of 12. Then we have a very impressive showing by the young Alireza Firouzja from Iran. But Carlsen is all the way down in 21st position, and you see that he is rather low out of those that have 8 points, because his tiebreak is not good because of the early setbacks. However, he does have 8 points, and if he can win his remaining 3 games, most likely he will have a chance to catch up with the leaders and maybe get a match for the title, even win the title outright. But okay, first he has to win in the 13th round against the Russian Grandmaster Grigoriy Oparin, one of these several very strong Russians that maybe you don't hear much about because they have so many good players. But okay, Oparin opens with knight f3, the ready opening, and we have d5 by Carlsen, the most principled choice. And after g3, c6, bishop to g2, we have bishop to f5. So Carlsen is setting up a London system with colors reversed. Actually, this was first played, I think, on the black side by Capablanca in London, where he set up the pieces like this, knight f6. In this game, Oparin took on d5, and Carlsen took back with the e-pawn, d3, and now he played bishop to c5. I quite often play this system with black, and yeah, maybe this is something that I will look into, to put the bishop here on c5. An interesting choice. In some lines, it's preventing white from sacrificing a pawn here, because once you take with a knight here, you will be hitting f2. So an interesting choice. But now Oparin goes for queen to b3. Bishop goes back to b6 to indirectly, well, defend this pawn. Knight to c3. Castles. And very direct play by Oparin. He just goes for the bishop pair. He wants to take this guy and be left with, the bishop pair. Rook to e8. Carlsen simply allows Oparin to take on b6 and takes with the pawn. Queen goes back to c2. Okay, the queen sort of finished its job here. It was attacking this and managed to get the bishop pair and double the pawns, although the double pawns here aren't that much of a weakness. In fact, they're more of a strength. You open up for the rook on the a file, and these pawns can be useful. h6 now by Carlsen, prophylactic both against anything coming to g5 and also giving the bishop a retreat square on h7 if you want to keep it on this diagonal in case of knight to h4. And now b3 by white. Perhaps b4 was also an option, just to stop black from going c5. In the game he played b3. And Carlsen quickly pounced here with c5. Now we see one of the problems of going b3 and d3. And I have found out the hard way against a grandmaster here in Iceland. After these moves, a3, d4. And now, in some lines, white has to worry about a knight jumping into c3. And, you know, depending on how the game goes, black might even in some cases play b5 and b4, get another pawn down here, and then you can really hammer a knight into c3. Very similar to like the bishop that Carlsen had in the game in the 10th round against Mamedyarov. Bishop on the enemy's 3rd rank. If it's taken, you get a massive protected pass pawn. For now, Oparin plays b4. Carlsen can take this, but it's not a healthy pawn, because you'll be left with double isolated pawns on an open file, and you will also undermine this pawn, which will become a weakness. So Carlsen prefers to protect the c5 pawn. And after rook fc1, adding another attacker to the pawn, he defends it, knight to d7. And yeah, realizing that there's no way to press further on the c file, white starts to rearrange his pieces, anticipating black going for the e file. So very nice piece setup here by black. Reminds me of a classic game by Botvinnik, where he presses with a clamp like this on a weakness on e2. Rook a to d1, knight d to e5, knight h4. Now we see this retreat square that we talked about, bishop to h7. And Carlsen definitely has the upper hand here. This bishop is hemmed in by the black pawns. Black has a nice setup on the e file, so he's just getting ready to find a good opportunity to pounce. Maybe push the pawns forward on the king side. So he's not rushing just yet. I mean, he has a nice position, but there's no need to rush. Queen e6. This eyes some squares on the queen side. You might, in some cases, enter here with the queen. b5. So now the position on the queen side is more or less closed. And e4 by white. Carlsen ignores this. He's not taking here. He can't take en passant, but this would open up the bishop. So he prefers to keep the bishop locked in and plays g5. Another point of this is that black is just winning a pawn here. You can go knight f5 or you can go knight f3. Oparin went with knight to f3. But we see now that he's slowly but surely getting outplayed here. Now he's dropping a pawn. He does have the bishop pair, but the black squared bishop is more or less out of the game. King h2, f5 now. And this is followed up nicely by not rook takes e1, but rook to e2. Attacking the queen. The queen has to retreat. And now queen takes f5, so Carlsen is starting to threaten some evil things here. And yeah, it turns out there's not much that white can do, because if you protect with the rook, you're dropping this pawn. This pawn dropped, rook takes. And now, yeah, white is just going, I mean, if I take here, you're just going to lose without a fight. So Oparin went for desperation with bishop takes d4. His idea being that if you take, you start checking, hoping for a perpetual check. Turns out there is no perpetual check here, and black can probably win with best play, because, well, in some lines you can just interpose your queen. Not right now, but later. But Carlsen had a better move here, bishop takes d3. And if black now, white now moves the bishop, we play bishop to e4. And the pin here is absolutely deadly. So queen e3 was played, but again, this is desperation. We take the piece on d4. And Carlsen was calm, cool and collected here, just took on b5. He's now up a piece and 2 pawns. And just has to avoid some perpetuals, and that's easily done here. To king f7, queen c7. The king starts running and finds good shelter on h5. And with this guy dropping, next move, nothing to be done for white, so Grigoriy Oparin resigned. Now, what does this mean? Let's have a look at the standings after this game. Yu Yanyi and Daniel Dubov both drew their game, so now they have 9.5, and would you know it, Carlsen is up to 9 points, so only half a point behind the leaders, but also in a massive group. I mean, from 4 down to 15, they all have 9 points, and note that Magnus, with his bad tiebreak, is second from bottom in this massive group of people on 9 points. But 2 rounds to go, and definitely still chances. He's still in it. I will see you in round number 14.